How's it hangin', mashin' bangin'? I am and today we continue to kinda gloss over the whole stealth thing, but at least do lots of cool flips and shit, as we make our way through Shinobi 3, Return of the Ninja Master. And first on our itinerary today is Round 5, Electric Demon, taking place in a forest that is very, very on fire. How much more on fire could it be? The answer is not very. Maybe all that fighting in the nearby oil field wasn't such a good idea. Anywho, right off the bat we see one of our new hazards for this stage, minefields. Fortunately, they're very easy to spot because there's a telltale lump on the ground giving away the presence of a mine. Less fortunately, they're not always as easy to avoid as they are to spot because they are set together kind of closely and there are usually enemies around. We also have these fuel tanks that are under so much pressure, possibly from the heat, that the very presence of your feet atop them is enough to make them blow their stack. Fortunately, those are a little easier to deal with because once you set foot on them, you have a good amount of time to move on before they flip their lid. And our enemies for this section are going to be the military guys that we've seen some of in previous stages. The guys with the mortar launchers are new though. They do only have the ability to shoot at one specific angle, they can't actually aim. But that's not always as easy to deal with as it might seem, because they tend to put that arc right where it lands in the middle of a minefield, or other obstacles, or other enemies, so that you kinda have to dance between hazards. All in all though, nothing we can't handle. One thing I like about this stage is that it has a lot of flat or appropriately sloped areas that you can do a lot of running. That kind of urgency just feels right for this stage, what with the enormous fire going on in the background and all the people firing guns and mortar launchers at you. It used to be once upon a time that I could pretty much do one sustained run through the entire stage, only breaking up my sprint with occasional hops to get out of the way of things or leap over obstacles. But that took a lot of practice and a lot of repeat playing. After all, as a youngster, I often didn't have anything better to do than replay my latest game over and over again. But in the adult world, with its many challenges and responsibilities, and oh god, I'm nearly middle-aged, it's gonna be weird to still be doing this shit when I'm 40, but for better and worse, I don't intend to stop. Anyway, in the adult world, I no longer really have the time, or honestly the patience, for that kind of memorization or nurturing of muscle memory, so I can no longer do this whole level at a run the way I used to. But it's a nice memory, and in service to that memory, I still like to do as much sprinting through it as I can. But never mind all that, we have Midboss. And at last we get to see what happened to that other little guy who flew away during the surfing sequence. Nice bit of continuity there, Shinobi 3. And our returning little guy has a very basic pattern in which he zooms back and forth trying to bowl you over, and occasionally stops to fire a few lasers. As you can see, my preferred strategy for dealing with him is to bypass the whole laser avoiding thing, and just tap dance on his head whenever he stops. The timing for this is a little tricky though, so that you don't come down right on top of him just as he starts another dash, in which case it will override your dive kick. But hey, he doesn't do all that much damage, I can take a few lumps, and in the end I'm hurting him a lot more than he's hurting me. And that, as they say, is that. Now we get to proceed on into the base, which doesn't seem to be too affected by the forest fire raging on outside of it. And we have a little bit of a new mechanic for the next few substages, involving using the crate bombs to blow up sections of floor so that we can get access to new parts of the level. The first and only stretch of the game in which the bombs are actually good for something. And here it just leads to a little bit of a side path with a few crates, but in the future we'll have to actually figure out how to use it to progress. And I don't go back for those crates because I actually forgot how to get across the little gap there, but I think the running hop would do it. Ah well, hindsight 2020 and what have you. Also, important safety tip me, try not to stand directly next to a bomb while detonating it with a shuriken, you dummy. And jumping directly into the path of a bullet in flight, usually not recommended unless it's your job to save the president. To be honest, if there's any part of this game that I'm not really enamored with, it's probably this. I mean, there's nothing really wrong with this stretch. I guess I just find the factory environment a little bit dull, and the bomb floor gimmick doesn't really add much to it for me. It's all still completely competent though, so I guess if this is the dullest part of the game, it's doing pretty well. We got another little sub-area below, accessed via bombing a floor. Couple shurikens for us, but do mind the death pit. And the next substage is really just more of the same. It's a little bit more vertical though, and we've got some elevators to contend with. It's perfectly possible to go completely across the ground level like I'm doing here. That will take you to the end of the level all the way without you really having to do any of the vertical aspects. Bomb there doesn't really do anything but open up a new death pit for you. But yeah, as you can see, heading across the ground level will eventually get you straight to the exit, and it's really the safest way to do it. But that's kinda boring, so let's go exploring. Hey, I'm a poet and didn't know it. I'm not entirely sure why they would build out this big vertical jungle gym of elevators and pipes to swing on and such when you can completely ignore it, and I imagine most players will just run to the right and miss it all. But hey, I'm glad to see they're willing to try some different things with the level design. A little bit of non-linearity, and even if it's not entirely to my taste, the whole bomb gimmick at least is something new. So full marks for making efforts to keep it fresh. The next level, though, I think is going to be a little more successful with that. You'll see when we get there. And of course, one advantage to exploring the upper reaches of this level is that you do end up with some more items. And we have hit the rightmost point of the scrolling, so I'm guessing the exit will be right below us. And so it is. The observant viewer has probably already noticed this, but if you look at the background there, where some things are under construction, you can get a little hint as to the identity of the eventual electric demon that we will be facing, as per the title of the level. This stage we can't just run right and go straight for the exit. We do have to engage with the vertical construction. And in a few places we have to find the right bomb location to blow up a bit of floor to remove an obstacle from our path. Again, I do salute the designer's intention to break up the flow a little bit and make things a little less of a straight run from left to right, just destroying everything in your path. But for my money, it just makes this section feel a little slow compared to the rest of the game. And I guess that's not a terrible thing. I mean, varying up the pace is a perfectly legitimate design sensibility. I don't know. Just doesn't do it for me, this particular stage. But like I said, if this is the least interesting part of the game, it's doing pretty well. I could do with a little less of the being shot from off-camera thing, though. Then again, that's really my fault more than the levels. If memory serves, this will be the last substage of Electric Demon, so we are getting pretty close to the demon in question. That felt kinda slick on my part. I do have to say, mechanically speaking, while I do appreciate the ceiling swing and the triangle jump, and I really appreciate the dash and the running sword slash, for sheer practicality, the dive kick has to be the most valuable player when it comes to new additions to the Shinobi engine here. Well, not really the Shinobi engine. This, I'm sure, is not the same engine, but you know what I'm trying to say. Damn it. Ah, shitcakes. Should have popped that crate the first time I saw it. Ah well, in the grand scheme of things, it's just a little bit of backtracking, and it's not like we're on a timer or anything. Now how do I get over there? Okay, a little bit of ceiling hang should put us at just the right height. There we go. No one, that's the same dead end it was 3 seconds ago. I swear, I must be the only person who needs an auto map in a simple platformer. Oh, I was wrong, there is still another substage. I guess that's another thing you could jot down in the con column for round 5, that it overstays its welcome a bit. I don't think we really needed the third factory substage. But perhaps I'm being overly critical. I do, after all, still consider this to be a virtuoso piece of game crafting. Just taking the butter with the sweet. Wait, the butter? The bitter with the sweet. Taking the butter with the sweet's a good way to get yourself the diabetes. And I remember this substage now. It's mostly a vertical progression, where you have to take the right branch in order to set off a bomb to clear the path for yourself from time to time. Looks like I missed a branch off there to the right. I doubt there was anything too important there, though. Just a few extra items. And at this point, I'm perfectly happy with progression. Because while some of the jumping puzzles are getting a little trickier, they're still mostly inconsequential aside from a little progress loss, and it's the next stage where they start to get real interesting. Is there anything down the left side here? No. Alright, now this should be the boss. Hey, remember in Revenge of Shinobi when we fought Godzilla? Here's Mecha Godzilla. My, he's a tall drink of water too. Doesn't even fit on the screen from the waist down. Our finally revealed electric demon has 3 main attacks. He stomps around, causing debris to rain from the ceiling. Sometimes the orbs on his chest will glow and release 3 projectiles. And finally, every time he roars, he's about to do this right-to-left plume of fire. Said plume often goes a little farther than you might expect, often to the edge of the screen depending on where he's hanging out. So it's helpful to be ready to jump over the last wisps of it. And my preferred way of dealing with the chest projectiles is just to jump when he's about to release them. That way they will harmlessly sail over your head when you hit ground again. Or like so, you'll at least be able to jump over the last one without too much difficulty. Overall, fairly simple and well telegraphed, but the random nature of the debris raining down can make things a little tricksy. Oh, and it is possible to stand on his claws, which does put you at just the right height to shoot him, but I don't tend to find that very helpful. Once he's most of the way gone, he will lose his head in the most literal sense, and obviously that means you no longer have to contend with the fire breath, but it also means the chest projectiles will come out a lot more frequently, and personally I'd rather just deal with the fire breath. On the plus side, it means that you're in the home stretch and a few more hits will do it. And that's our electric demon sent back to electric hell. And now traps. Oh boy, traps. This is where the rubber meets the road and the shit hits the fan when Shinobi 3 says, "Hey, we've only got 2 levels left. If we're gonna kill this motherfucker, we better hop to it." And the difficulty skyrockets accordingly. such as in this nifty set piece where we have to descend to the bottom of this canyon on falling rocks. Now, I'm no physicist, but this doesn't seem like it should work. It does make for a really neat level design though, so I'm all for it. I sure hope you've been practicing your double jump timing though, because the game certainly expects that you have. The gaps between boulders will only get bigger and bigger, and this level's actually pretty long. There are checkpoints, but not very many of them, so it's really easy to lose a bunch of progress with one whiff double jump, so don't whiff any. And yes, the Batwing assholes are back. And they're as good at knocking you into pits as ever, especially now that most of the level is one big pit. You also want to make sure that you take them out as quickly as you can, because otherwise they'll hang out for quite a while, playing loud music until all hours of the night and eating off the good china. One thing that does work in your favor here, though, is that the kill box, I suppose you'd say, the plane beneath which you can't fall or otherwise you die, is actually a bit off the bottom of the screen, not right at the bottom. So you can fall until your body is pretty much completely off the bottom of the screen, and still have another moment or two to save yourself. Shinobi 3 is not completely without mercy, as also evidenced by that very kindly placed 1-up, which will respawn if you die, so as long as you can make it back to that crate, you can keep collecting the 1-up and try again as many times as you need to. First time I ever saw this pebble, I was like, you gotta be shitting me. But you can stand on it. Fortunately, it also means you're almost to the end. And indeed, here's our Midboss. He's a vaguely Tengu-looking dude who periodically hides himself in a swirl of feathers. If you hit the feathers dead center, he'll come out to fight properly and swing on you with his halberd. I usually react to that with dive kicks. Get enough hits in and he'll squeak and go back into his feathers and rinse and repeat. You do only have a few safe places to stand during this fight, but really there's no particularly good reason to move around a lot. If you just stick to one side like I'm doing here, and just deal with the attacks as they come, let them come to you, not too bad of a mid-boss at all. One more cycle I think ought to do it, he's looking pretty pink. And down he goes in a rain of flaming feathers. Rather satisfying, that. In this next stretch of traps, we see that certain elements in Neo-Zed are still very fond of old-school Japanese architecture. This game has already had quite a few callbacks to Revenge of Shinobi, and pretty much this entire level is a throwback to the final stage of Revenge. And just like the final stage of Revenge, it is a door maze, but thankfully not a very difficult one. And walking in front of a door doesn't force you to go through it like Revenge. You have to actually press up in front of the door, which is a much appreciated change. This room is definitely on the tricksy side because you have these crates as platforms you use to get up to the optimal door, and crates can be destroyed with errant shurikens. And of course the bad assholes are around to make life even more irritating. Generally speaking though, it's not too difficult to avoid destroying your footholds, just don't spam your shurikens around willy-nilly. And the next room is going to be a test of our precision triangle jumping. You have to really be careful about your heights so that you don't get impaled on the spear points at the top of the walls, which will do a little damage of course, and also knock you down, forcing you to do the section over again. The left and right give us always appreciated POWs and health pickups. And now back to business. So far so good. If you do fall down when trying to do the chain triangle jumping sections, you lose a little progress and might have to go through a suboptimal door, but there are no death pits anywhere down there, so that at least is a touch of mercy. Whoops. Only stuck myself once, though. Not bad at all. Now, this part is actually more dangerous than it looks. It seems like a pretty basic timing exercise, but the window to slip through safely is tighter than it looks, and these big stakes will one-shot you. I usually end up taking a hit or two on the spear points, just to avoid getting insta-killed, and I've lost more lives in this section than I'm comfortable admitting. But we've made it. This is, of course, the boss door. And you can do a running jump to the right over these spears to get a few extra items, but that'll take you back to an earlier part of the level, and I can't be arsed. Well, it wouldn't be a proper throwback to the final stage of Revenge of Shinobi without a throwback to the Kabuki asshole who was the end boss of Revenge of Shinobi. He'll come out of these revolving doors, always with a shadow double, and to the best of my knowledge, there's no way to tell which is the shadow without just throwing shurikens at them and hoping for the best. So, just keep pelting them, and these 8-way spikes are a little difficult to dodge, but if they're both on the lower level at least, you can duck under the mid-level ones. I always end up taking a bunch of hits here, though. Like the level 4 boss, only more so, this one tends to turn into a really ugly mud fight for me, where I tank way too many hits with my face, and a lot of the time I'll need to use Mijin. In fact, let's do that. We still do some pretty good damage with my self-destruction. Just enough damage, in fact, to start the next phase of the fight. Now our Kabuki friend will get rid of the shadow doubles, and just start coming out of the various revolving doors. Whenever he comes out of the lower right or lower left doors, he'll do this homing triple fan attack. If he comes out of the middle top or middle bottom door, he'll do an 8-way spread of his hair spikes. And in either of the top right or top left doors, he'll do that thing where he hops across the top and causes spikes to come out of the floor with additional fans. Pretty much all of these are a royal pain in the ass to avoid. If you're fast enough to react, though, the 8-way spike spread is probably the easiest to dodge. Just duck so that the mid-level ones go over you, same as in the first phase. Fortunately, he doesn't have a whole lot of health in the second phase of the fight. And that will bring us to the final confrontation. Apparently, we Ninja Gaiden 3 now, because there's an ancient ship of doom. Although in this game it's called the Wing of Darkness. Neo Z is really running the technological gamut, aren't they? As you'd imagine from the fact that you're on a flying ship way up in the sky, there's not going to be a whole lot under your feet here. The entire bottom of the screen is one big death pit. There's always a lot to hang from, though, so for my money it's nowhere near as nerve-wracking as the first part of Traps where you're going down the canyon. All you really need to do is take it slow and make sure the route is clear before you proceed. Instead of relying on timing, I like to always destroy the big jet engines or laser cannons or whatever they are. And also pop the steam vents when I can reach them. Really, as long as you've got a basic command over all your moves, especially the hang and the double jump, and if you've made it this far you will, then you'll be fine. Oh, but if I get myself killed on this stage, that is always the way it happens. I have this bad habit of jumping the gun a little bit on those steam vents, and if any part of the clouds is still visible and hasn't completely despawned, you will get knocked to your death. So it's not that it's horribly difficult to avoid making fatal mistakes on this level, it's more that, well, pretty much any mistake you make will be fatal. Ah well, I've now reminded myself for the session of this bad habit of mine, so we'll be a little more careful and make sure the steam is actually gone all the way before I do it next time. I do like the design of this stage quite a bit, both mechanically and aesthetically. It seems like an appropriate climax after all the different places we've been to put the cherry on top by hitching a ride and infiltrating this huge sci-fi flying dreadnought. There's nothing too crazy about this elevator sequence, just these droids periodically dropping down in front of you. And every time one of these crossbeams appears, there will be 2 to 4 rotating turrets on it. It helps if you can pop those droids as soon as they drop down and get level with your shuriken height, because if you let them live for any length of time beyond that, they'll start flitting around and shooting at you and generally making life annoying. It's such a minor detail, but I really do like the way that the barrels go spiraling off when you destroy those turrets. And that's all there is for the elevator. Easy peasy, and in fact Japanesey, because ninja. Now that we've made it up on deck, our main threat is going to be these giant cannons, which surprisingly we can block. And once we get on the back, they're helpless and we can kick off the business end. Which doesn't seem like an entirely sensible way of using one's feet, but hey, Joe's tough. You do actually have to be standing level to block, you know. Also, if you see me walking forward in my block stance a lot, that's because I tend to forget where the cannons actually are. And, well, my reaction time isn't perfect. Whoa, easy there, Joe. You can block the cannon fire, but not with your face while running at full speed. I'm really making a mess out of this part. But at least you don't actually take any damage for running into the cannon barrels. You just get knocked back a bit. And these anti-aircrafty guns are much less of a threat. Oop. If I were the pragmatic sort, I would be popping a Mijin right about now to make sure I have enough life to get through the rest of the stage. But I'm not going to be the pragmatic sort. I'm going to risk it, because I'm trying to save as many lives as I can for the grand finale when we go inside the ship. And these steam vents being at convenient kick height means they're no problem at all. Alright, I do believe we've got another double-decker cannon here. There we go. Just block, wait for the opportunity. Slow and steady, plus proper care and feeding, makes a safe and happy ninja. And health pickups always help. that's what happens if you don't pop the droids right away, but I got to block a bullet with my melee strike, which I didn't know was possible. And here we are, the interior of the Wing of Darkness. If you ever play this far, I really hope your triangle jump game is on point, because we're about to get into some last level of NES Batman shit. The usual double jumping and hanging tricks will be important as well, but the big challenge of this final level is lots and lots of precision wall jumps. A lot of them are pretty ingenious in their evil. And sometimes if you whiff, there'll be a damage floor, and sometimes there'll be a death pit. You'll never know unless you try, so try not to find out. And this bit is just like the spear-tipped columns in the traps level, so thank you Shinobi 3 for giving us some practice. Ugh. I am definitely not covering myself in glory this run. Ah well, as long as I stay alive, that's the main thing. Better that I run into a bunch of damage walls and floors than fall into a bunch of death pits. I could stand to not run into quite so many of them, though. High voltage is not your friend, Joe. The timing on these columns is very tricky. If you jump too early, you'll bash your head into the electrified ceiling and fall into the pit. And if you jump too late, you'll miss your jump and fall into the pit. I think there might be something good down there. Let's see if I can pull off the retrieval without getting killed. The answer is no. Well, at least we got a checkpoint. I think this is going to put us right about where the moving platform sequence is. Yes, indeed. Maybe this time I'll do it without getting zapped quite so often. Well, so far this is looking like an improvement, knock wood. Ah! Well, third time's a charm, innit? That had been such a good run. Didn't get myself zorched at all. Well, all the electricity dodging in the world won't help you if you fall prey to an instant death hazard. Well, this time I'm doing quite poorly with the zaps, but hopefully that means I'll do well with the pits. Optimally, of course, I'd like to do well with both, but if it's gotta be one or the other, I'll take the successful pit jumping. Got a lot more health than I do lives to spare. Alright, come on, big money, no whammies. Alright, got zapped but recouped in time to avoid a death, I'll take it. And fuck that crate. Alright, the jumps are bigger and farther apart, but at least with this set of columns we don't have to worry about a low ceiling. I find that a bit less threatening. Oh, jeez. You would think by now I would have learned my lesson about not standing next to bombs while popping them with my shurikens. Thankfully, we have activated another checkpoint. Getting a little low on the life counter there. I'm actually burning through them faster than I thought I would, so I'm glad I stockpiled a good amount in the previous levels. Alright, this time don't make out with the bomb. It doesn't like you that way. Ooh, totally worth it. Well, no, I broke even there, so not totally worth it, but, you know. Well, takes what I can get. Now, the particular shenanigan here is that you have to jump at just the right time so that you're in the air when the platform goes behind the wall, and I managed to screw it up at every turn. Good job, me. And that was a really dickish place to put a bomb. But I do admire your dickery, Sega. It's clever dickery, and that's all I really ask. Man, apparently we can destroy steel doors just by looking at them. We've got a big fat wall jump section here with a moving wall slowly making its way over to crush us. Pretty soon we'll start, yep, there they are, we'll start seeing damage walls. And running into too many of those, or running into them at the wrong time, stands a good chance of making you fall down and lose enough progress that the wall's gonna crush you. So you gotta move quickly here, but it's definitely worth sacrificing a little bit of speed for better precision, because, well, getting zapped at the wrong time will get you killed. But with all that taken care of, we are ready for the final battle. Oh, neat background there, guy. This is the new leader of Neo Zed, I presume, and while he doesn't have the hostage-taking sensibilities of the Kabuki guy from Revenge, he is a better straight-up fighter. Most of the time, when he's not actively attacking you, he'll be blocking, so you have to wait for him to go off before you can get your hits in, and his shurikens have a pretty good spread, so as with so many boss fights, I like to sidestep that by pogoing on his head with repeated dive kicks. And that'll bring us to his second phase, in which chaining dive kicks on his head becomes riskier because if the timing is off, he can and will straight up shoryuken you. He'll also gain a dive kick of his own, and various short and long range energy blasts, most of which hurt quite a bit. In fact, let's pop a Mijin. I'm afraid this is another boss fight at which I'm frankly a bit shit, but oh well, all we have to do is outlast him. Oh, come on, aren't you going to show off your Dragon Punch? Well, here's his big desperation move. He slowly floats into the air while spewing out energy in all directions. Optimally, you'll find a good place to stand and block all of them, but I didn't have the right angle there. But there's the Shoryuken. Ugh, I'm almost out of life again already. Ooh, 2 Mijins in one boss fight. Not a good look for you, hon. But it got the job done with 1 life to spare. The battle has ended. The wing of darkness burns and shakes the earth as it lands. The silent wind gently surrounds Musashi and comforts his wounded body. In this world of confusion, evil will continue to thrive and will rise again one day. When history takes another turn, there will be a man running in the darkness. He will be a shadow. He will be a shinobi. And the series would continue. However, riding off into the sunset is an appropriate image to end on because this was the last hurrah for Joe Musashi. Shinobi Legions on the Saturn, Shinobi GBA, Shinobi PS2, and Shinobi 3DS would each introduce a new character to very mixed results. Shinobi Legions made the odd choice of combining digitized actors with low-grade CG and campy FMV. The GBA game was just kind of a general train wreck. PS2 Shinobi was a decent transition to 3D, if ball-breakingly hard, and the 3DS game is actually really outstanding and another strong contender for Best in the Series. Bad or good though, not a one of them brought back old Joe. Well, live long enough and you'll hit retirement age eventually. And as swan songs go, one could do a lot worse than Shinobi 3: Return of the Ninja Master. It's been a while since I ran through this one, and I've really enjoyed revisiting it. Whether you've been revisiting it yourself or seeing it for the first time, it's been a pleasure having you along, and I hope you've enjoyed it too. So sayonara, Joe Musashi. Sayonara, Ninja Horse. I am Un, and that's game, Hendrix. This edition of I Played a Thing has been brought to you by Justin Carpenter, Nolden, Zangamarth, Charlie Dunst, Anonymous Benefactor, John Madigan, Sanguine Games, Misha Van Doren, Frank Grizzy, Tim J., Lolo De Puzzlo, Joshua C. Ritchie, Jared C. Rice, Darren Chow, Sonic Rose, E.X. Potemkin, Alicia Goranson, Argyle Jelly, Mechasaurus, D.G. Jono, Doug Russell, August Fortnight, Patrick Bellinger, Rob Lyons, and other very generous patrons. Thanks as well to all commenters, subscribers, and watchers. It's been a pleasure as always. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you next game.